I said there were 16 things in the playbook. Number 14, you must deal only with the truth. You must deal only with the truth. Denial, trivializing things, minimizing things, that's for suckers. You have to deal with the truth. I don't care what it is that you're dealing with, whether it's parenting your kids, dealing with a crisis in your marriage, dealing with a crisis in your health, you have to deal with the truth. Winners deal with the truth. And you know when they deal with it at the first opportunity they have. They deal with the truth as soon as it presents itself. That seems self-evident, right? That if you want to be a winner, one of your items in the playbook is you deal with the truth. You don't lie to yourself. But that's not as intuitively obvious as it may seem, because we tend, through something called perceptual defense, to screen out things we don't want to see, we don't want to hear, and give our brain access to only those things that don't upset us. You have to consciously overcome that. I guess it boils down to this. When you think about it, don't you know the truth when you hear it? Let's say you are really worrying about something. You're really worrying about a test result from a doctor. You're really worrying about your kids out on an icy road. You're really worrying about it. And your friends are there and they're coming by and patting you on the back of the hand saying, oh, it's going to be fine. Oh, it's going to be okay. Now, everything's going to be fine. Does that really make you feel better? Because it doesn't me. It's never made me feel better. What makes me feel better is somebody that comes by and says, let's think this through. Let's assume that it is not good news. What's our next step? If it comes back positive, what does that mean? What do you do? Monsters live in the dark. Let's turn the lights on and see what we have to deal with here. What are the chances? What are you actually facing here? What are you dealing with? That's the person I want to talk to. Some vapid imbecile that comes by and pats me on the back of the hand and tells me it's going to be okay, unless they're a soothsayer, that doesn't give me any comfort whatsoever. It's going to be okay. Really? How do you know that? What is it that you know that I don't know? Look, they're just trying to be supportive, right? I hate to be harsh with them, but frankly, shut up. You don't know anything about it, so why are you talking to me about it? I want to talk to somebody that has talked to the highway patrol or has some way to get some information or understands what the diagnosis would mean or has some relevant information grounded in reality and based on fact, instead of they want to make themselves feel better because they came over and patted me on the hand and told me it was going to be okay. Deal with the truth. As I have studied case after case after case of champions, people that are winners, whether it's in business, research, athletics, or whatever, I never found people that stayed in bad relationships. Interestingly enough, they didn't have unusually high divorce rate, but they didn't stay in bad relationships. You know what they did? They said, this sucks. I don't like this. It's painful. It drains me of my energy. So I'm either going to fix it or move on. But they would say, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. And I always tell people that if you don't believe in divorce, okay, then look at your partner and say, we're not getting a divorce and we're not living like this anymore either. Neither of those two are options. So what's the third option? We're going to change. We're going to fix this. But the people that I've studied as champions, by and large, do not stay in relationships that are toxic, sick, draining, pulling them down. And they admit it the minute they see it. Maybe it's them, maybe it's their partner, maybe it's just the way they come together, but they admit it. Because the only thing worse than being in a bad relationship for 10 years is being in a bad relationship for 10 years and 1 day. The sooner you know it, the faster you can deal with it. So deal with the truth. If you're in a business and it's bleeding cash, tell yourself, we're bleeding cash here. Deal with the truth. When you open your kid's sock drawer and you push all the socks to the side so you can put some more socks in the sock drawer, and there's a baggie of marijuana laying there, and you're standing at the door tapping your foot when the kid comes home, and he says, okay, no big deal. That's not mine. I took that from Billy because I didn't want him to get caught with it, and I've told him we're just not going to have that. Don't be an idiot. It's in his sock drawer. It's his drugs. People don't give friends their drugs to hang on to. Deal with the truth. You find drugs in your kid's drawer, it's your kid's drugs. I'm sorry. And if it's not his drugs and he gets burned for it, then he learns a good lesson. It's idiotic to be holding drugs for your friends. But don't lie to yourself because you want it not to be your kid's drugs. And if you know your kid's on drugs and they're telling you, okay, Mom, I've quit that. I'm not going to do it anymore. And you go find drug paraphernalia in their room or their car, or they're staying up all night, they're showing drug behavior, don't lie to yourself. Deal with the truth. People always say, Dr. Phil, one of the things I deal with is, I've just got a really poor self-image. I've got really low self-esteem and I've got a really poor self-image. You would think that a psychologist would say, come on, you got to believe in yourself. Get a positive dialogue going. That is not the first thing I say. The first thing I say is, well, let's look at the truth. Is your poor self-image, is your low self-esteem realistic? Maybe you're worthless. Seriously, if you haven't worked in 2 years and you're abusive with your wife and you're abusing drugs and alcohol, you should have a bad self-image. You should have low self-esteem. Let's deal with the truth. I don't want to go puff this guy up when in fact he has a pretty clear view of himself. What I would rather do is acknowledge that he has a clear view of himself and that his poor self-image is accurate. And so putting on his to-do list is to change who he is and how he behaves rather than changing the dialogue about how he's labeling who he is and how he behaves. Old sayings get to be old sayings because they are profound. They stick around generation to generation to generation because they fit. And an old saying is you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. It's true. You can take somebody that is an unemployed, wife-abusing drug addict and get him to say positive things to himself. That's like putting lipstick on a pig. Now you got a jerk saying positive things to himself. You have not improved anything. You're not dealing with the truth. The guy's a jerk. He needs to be honest about that so he can put on his to-do list improving his values, improving his behavior, improving his motivation, improving his goals in life, rather than just changing his internal dialogue. When we're talking about medicine, we always say early detection, early intervention is often the key to a good outcome. They say that because it's true. You catch something before it gets a good foothold, you can oftentimes knock it out. But if you wait until it overcomes all of your body's resistance, it compromises your constitution, it's an infection that spreads throughout your whole body, something that could have been easily handled now becomes monumental or even insurmountable. Why? Because you didn't deal with the truth. You didn't admit you had a problem. You didn't want to go to the doctor because you were afraid what he or she might tell you. You didn't want to hear the truth. So you stuck your head in the sand And it got worse and worse and worse until you couldn't deny it. And now what could have been easily eliminated becomes a serious problem. You must deal only with the truth, and the sooner you do, the better off you're going to be.